Welcome to Unscripted, conversations exploring where we've come from and where we are going. We begin with a single word and we go wherever it takes us. There's no agenda, there's no script, just the passion to share the conversations that matter. Today I am following the word trail with Julia McEwen. Welcome, Julia. It is an absolute delight to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I'm equally as delighted.
Now, before I ask you to introduce yourself, I want to acknowledge something. There's, I don't know when it was earlier this year, that you did a podcast episode with Neve Cronin. And it's because of that podcast, but that's one of the reasons that inspired this series, was because I was thinking about, at the time, you were sales coaching, and you were talking about nothing to do with sales coaching, although I knew that it was connected. And it was just part of the inspiration for this was just thinking about how you were trying to weave that enormous conversation into something as sort of precise as sales. Do you know what I mean? It was that context, and that. So you were one of the inspirations for this entire series, was to actually think about how do we make space for those really big conversations when we are expressing a particular part of that conversation through our businesses. So
Wow.
I wanted to say thank you for that inspiration.
Thank you so much for reflecting that back to me. I really appreciate you sharing that. So,
well,
thanks.
I wanted to do it before I said, but I know you've been on this big journey, and you're continuing to be on this big journey. So, please tell us, introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah, thank you. Well, firstly, I want to thank you for opening this container and creating this beautiful space that we can weave these big concepts in and play. So I'm really happy to be here today. I can only introduce myself as Julia and where I'm at now in life. At the moment, I've actually just completed a massive experience in my life and closed an energetic door to my last business, which is soul-centered sales. And I feel like I'm in a bit of a journey of exiting the entire online new agey business, social media driven matrix. And I'm creating a whole new experience of the type of business that I want to see in the world with two other amazing women, Holly and Dawn, who I'd definitely like to acknowledge in this. For me, my life is about experiences and living an experience-rich life. I love nature immersion experiences. I'm a tree hugger. I'm a magic weaving, subtle energy sorcerer. I love tuning into the subtle energies, and I'm really connected into my home country, Australia, but I love travel as well. And for me, I think right now I'm on this beautiful path of reconnecting with the most simple things in life, the things that we're really here to live for, like joy and laughter explosions and highly activating conversations, and connecting with our truth and finding out what sovereignty and personal power means to us, and running around with our shoes off in nature and getting fresh in all the elements, enjoying the sun and the wind and the water, and connecting with community and knowing who the people are on your street, and coming together over shared experiences that we want to create. And I think a big part of that is really about connecting in with the most important things that bring community and life and relationships together, the basics, like where we live, the food we eat, how we spend our time. So that's where I'm at right now. I realized actually that all the things that I wanted in life, what the end game, when I really looked at it, I didn't necessarily need to be a social media celebrity to do any of that. So I'm letting all the things go that are just getting in the way, and I'm just getting back to the raw essence of what really is my original intention and what I came here to do. And I guess it wouldn't be fair to introduce myself without sharing that I really love digging deep and diving down into the underworld and getting connected into the organic dark energies of this earth. And I tend to enjoy speaking the truth into a situation, not necessarily the truth, but what my truth is, and talking about the elephant in the room that no one really wants to talk about, because I feel like connecting in with our core wounds and the things that we tend to avoid is exactly the pathway to our transformation and moving beyond and creating a better, more open, expansive experience.
And that is exactly why you're here. And yeah, so which leads very beautifully into your word, which is
magic.
So what does magic mean to you?
Okay, firstly, I'm not talking about magic tricks and illusions, and I tend to spell it differently, as many people do. So without a C, I spell it with a K, or some people spell it with a CK at the end, just to, I guess, to claim back that word magic, that it isn't an illusion, it's not a trick. I'm talking about the real organic magic. And what magic means to me is my main operating modus. It is absolutely everything around me. It is like the nature when it talks, and okay, I'm just going to share with you my latest magical experience, because that's way easier than explaining what magic is. Okay, so I'm in this beautiful property in northern New South Wales, and I'm just loving it because I'm looking after a gorgeous little dog, and I'm walking around, and I had one of those days where I was like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing, Julia? And all the worries just started to come in, like, where are you going to live next? And how are you going to make money? And you're not even like, you're closing your business down and you haven't created the next thing. And, I was just like, I was feeling like a little irresponsible, naughty adult that was refusing to grow up. And I was like, not enjoying that feeling either, because I'm like, I don't want to, if growing up is just growing into this paradigm, that's not me either. So anyway, the thoughts were coming, bam, 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 bam. And the negative like feelings and sensations were just running through my body. And then I took this step that felt different to every other one. And as I planted my foot on the ground, I was just so present to the moment, and I felt my foot connect with the ground, and it anchored me into the earth. And both my feet were planted firmly, and I suddenly, the environment came alive. Like I'm literally in like Jurassic Park without the scary dinosaurs. It was like this weird energy, this amazing wonderland of what felt ancient, and all the trees just like the wind and the leaves just lit up, and the breeze was blowing, and I could hear all the birds and the vibration of the sound of the birds. Every single sound in that forest penetrated my whole body. And I heard the forest say, this isn't your problem. Don't worry about it. Relax. We're weaving magic for you. Can you feel us weaving the magic? We've got this. You've got this. It's okay. And I literally felt the magic being weaved all around me. It's like everything in my life was conspiring to support me in that moment. And I was just like, oh, that's right. When I'm not operating from a place of magic, my life gets really hard fast. It gets challenging. I feel stuck. I feel powerless. But the moment, and I have to remind myself like all the time, the moment that I connect back in with that realm of magic, which is that like just ongoing support, and it's communicated through me through the natural world. And I see the weaving and the magic happen, and I see the orchestration of all the events well in advance. And, someone might reflect it back to me. I could be struggling in my life. And I was like about 6 months ago, I was having a really difficult situation. And then someone was saying, okay, well, what do you need and what's happening next in your life? And I was explaining, well, I'm going here, I'm visiting these people, then I'll be there. And we were just almost rolling around laughing when we realized that I had orchestrated the massive breakdown and breakthrough and all the situations and people to support me and nurture me back to my full state of an integrated and new expansive version of myself. And I was like, that is magic for me.
So an immensely rich. I mean, when you were sort of saying where you were at now, what this is where I'm at now. It was just like the thing that came to me was just, it was just every part of your life that you were talking about. You were talking about just really richly embracing life. You know, the ups and the downs, the good and the bad. But you were really looking at rediscovering what it means to live. And that's exactly what you've just reflected there, is just that, you know, that in that moment of putting your foot on the ground, it's just like almost like through the looking glass is what came to me. It's like you step into, you don't step into another world. I think we both agree you don't step into another world, but you realize that you've not actually been seeing the world that you've been in.
Exactly. It's like you are so right, Polly. Every single time I connect with the magic of like with magic and this world, it's it's the veil that is lifting, that is always like disconnecting the human being from their experience. Their natural state is to be a magical being, but that is definitely you know, taken away from them, and certainly knocked out of them at a very early age. And people grow up and they just lose that magic and that sense of that. And ever since I came back to rediscovering that experience and what it's like to live a magical life, it has completely pulled me back into what's important.
Mm.
What really is important. And it just amazes me how like distracted we are from actually remembering what's really essentially important.
Mm. But you've adopted, for now at least, a lifestyle which is unconventional enough to allow you to break free of those patterns, because a lot of it is to do with the routine and the ritual, isn't it? That, you know, we have a house that we have to, a home that we have to pay for somehow, and we have a job, so we have to have a job that we go to in order to pay the money, so that then we get trapped. Whereas you've chosen to step outside of that and have a completely fluid living situation that allows you to experience life in different places constantly and see things from different perspectives and not be tied and rooted, or no, I don't want to use the word rooted or anchored. I do mean tied to a specific situation. Do you think that's helped you sort of like break out of it?
Yeah. Yeah, and certainly like it's just a vehicle. It's not everyone's path to do this, nor is it, you know, how they can experience magic unfolding. So I feel like any situation in life can be used to allow magic to unfold. It's just your intention around it. So for me, the most difficult experiences that I've had you know, since I've been alive have been things around safety and security, and feeling stable, and all those real primal needs being met has really been where my energy and worry used to reside. So I would freak out and worry about, you know, anything to do with those basic primal needs like home and money, and this, what I'm doing right now, would have scared the crap out of me years and years ago. So for me to allow the experience of magic to unfold and to really trust in this realm, it was just so obvious that this is the lifestyle that was going, I could use this experience to allow this to unfold. So now I am house sitting and I'm moving all around different parts of northern New South Wales and southeast Queensland in these beautiful environments. And every single experience has asked me to trust more in myself, to find home within me, and to watch the orchestration of everything, the tapestry unfolding, and to really trust that this realm is supporting me. And that's exactly what it's showing me. I don't know how long I'll be doing this for. I think I've just been doing like, I know it'll be the perfect time when I stop doing this and get a bit more anchored and rooted, as you said, because I do crave that as well. And I desire that, and I want that in my life in the future. But I know it'll happen in the perfect time when I've derived the experience, the full richness of that experience out. And I'm not seeking security outside of myself. And I fully trust that the magic is alive within me to create whatever experience I want. So what I'm doing is I'm actively removing all of these, I would say that they're false platforms of security that the human naturally grabs onto and goes, and now I have a home, I'm safe. And it's like, well, for me, I don't want my safety to come, my feeling of safety to come from the fact that I have a home, because a home can disappear like that.
Yeah.
And it has lately in Australia. There's been a lot of homes that have disappeared like that. And soon you realize that projecting your safety and security outside of yourself is, it works, but it's not the richest experience possible for me. So I'd rather dive more into that world.
But you've reflected it in what you were saying there is about the need to come back within ourselves in order to find the security, the safety within ourselves, to realize that we are whole within ourselves. But going on that journey means going into places that we may not necessarily find that attractive. Which I think is, is where you've been at recently, isn't it? It's going into the really dark side of what it means to be human in order to get comfortable with it.
Yeah. So when I've had the most expansion and transformation, and I'm talking about suffering being a victim of a certain experience or issue my whole life, and then suddenly it just not even being existent in my world. Like, that's when I know that I've fully transformed and integrated that experience, and I've moved on to other ones. So this has happened for many different areas and experiences in my life, especially long-term anxiety. So I'm like, yeah, I've mastered that world in this life. I was anxious from the moment I was aware up until, like, seriously anxious, up until I would say the age of 32, 33. So for the last 5 years or so of my life, I'm like, oh, I don't experience myself as a victim of anxiety anymore. So every single time I have had one of those experiences where I've fully transformed and transcended and learned all I've needed to know, I've grabbed the wisdom and I've really completed that experience, has been a journey into the underworld and really looking at my deepest darkness, my fears and my wounds, because I feel like all they ever do is act like weeds, and they always have potential until we really integrate those experiences, and also not to make them wrong in any way, just to stop rejecting them and pretending that they're not a part of our life. And I feel like the world of magic is all accepting of everything. Like, every experience is just like nature, which can be, horrible and cruel and beautiful, wondrous all at the same time. It's everything. And I feel like our lives are the same as human beings. We're horrible and cruel. We have horrible and cruel experiences, and we have magical, wonderful experiences as well. And what tends to happen, I've noticed, is people will do anything they possibly can to either avoid those dark experiences or not talk about them, or not go there or not look at them, and try and build their life from an inherent rejection of who they are. And when we're rejecting a part of who we are, it just plays up more, or when something, if you feel into it, the energy of not being acknowledged, when someone isn't acknowledged, what happens to that person? When they're not acknowledged for who they are, you can think of all these scenarios right now unfolding. Hey, it's just like, oh, humans just need to be acknowledged. Well, so does every part of that human. So that's why I will delve in that world. And I believe that's a part of the magical realm.
Absolutely. And magic has to be balanced. You know, there has to be that concept of balance. I mean, and polarities. I mean, I just think that in the world that we live in our perception, our limited perception of the world that we live in, we cannot perceive the levels of balance. And I think about this a lot in terms of the health, the global health of our world, that we simply can't function. And thinking about that, but if we can't even go within ourselves and look at the dark and the light, you know, that if we can't go in there and look at it, then where are we going to go? Because we can't possibly then deal with it. Because if we want everything to be all light and very fluffy and nice all the time, then we are never going to be able to get our hands dirty dealing with what isn't so nice.
Oh, yeah. And it's just like you said, polarity, add more love and light. Well, guess what you're going to get in return?
Mm-hmm.
It's fine. It's not a judgment, but just know what you're dealing with. Like, that's why there's extreme experiences amplified on earth right now, because there's been a massive religious, spiritual, new age love and light movement. And then there's also extreme horrible things happening because it's just like a recipe. You add more of one, something else happens.
But yeah, exactly, and that's the thing that with this polarity thing, we've been operating on polarities for a very long period of time. We swing from one extreme to the other, and we're never actually coming into a place of balance. And until we come into a place of balance within ourselves as an individual, we can't ever hope to create that within society.
Yeah, and yeah, that is so important. Like that whole conversation around balance is that I think for many years I thought that I could find this happy medium, and it just doesn't. Like it requires tension and flow. Like this is a podcast, you can't see me swinging my hands like a little pendulum, but it just requires like a little bit of back and like a little bit of flow. And to know when you need to delve in the dark, and you need dark medicine in that moment, and then know when you need light medicine. And it's your job to kind of like monitor that within yourself, like what's going to be the best thing for you right now. Like I know I need dark medicine when I'm hiding something from myself. I know I need dark medicine when I'm experiencing a feeling that I pretend I don't know what it is for a long time until I realize it's shame. And I'm like, I need dark medicine right now. I need to go into that world. And I'll put like the blankets over my head. I just started doing this recently. I don't care how beautiful it is outside. I block out everything and I put on some like really kind of haunting music, and I experience my journey. And I used to journey outwards into the cosmos, but it's like I journey the cosmos within, and I feel myself just go between and I sink into the earth, and I watch the soil come over me, my body decompose, and I connect with the energies of the Middle Earth. And I just go far into the darkness, and it's beautiful, that world. And I know that medicine that I receive there is exactly what I need in that moment. But then when I'm annoyed and frustrated that I'm not, seeing the things that I want to unfold in my life, and I'm getting like narky and a little bit judgmental, I'm like, no, I need some light medicine right now. I need to like dance or connect with someone who is just in that space and just knowing what's right for us. So I've been talking a lot about with some of my dear friends that we're creating this experience with Holly and Dawn called Grail Leadership, which is bringing in new concepts of how we can work in a world of business. But we talk a lot about the beyond solution. And I worked for so many years with a personal coach who said something like kind of the same but different. It was like there's one extreme and there's another extreme, but what's beyond that whole world? So when Holly started talking about the beyond solution to me, I'm like, I get that world. That's how I used to like transcend experiences. So we usually get either or, and we kind of like go back and forth between them. But there is something that we can move beyond that, but we have to be willing to understand and integrate all the experiences of the polarity before we can like kind of move beyond that. And beyond solution is like, well, now that you're accepting and appreciating all of this, what can be created from that space. And usually what it is something so brand new that's never been heard of. You're not repeating a pattern or a program system in the collective consciousness of humanity, because you're just like blown away. You're like, wow, that meets all of my needs, and it has everything I want, and this side's happy and that side's happy, and I can totally operate from that space. And wow, and it's just like so obvious, the solution. So yeah, there is like playing with that as well. Is not just balance, but what can you shift beyond all of those experiences?
And that does come back, to where that original inspiration came from, which for me, which was around how do you fit those bigger conversations into stuff, because there is such collective programming in the world of business. It's doing. I mean, I've come to call it the business shadow. It's just like you see people who are very aware of who they are as a person, and then it comes to being in business, and all of a sudden they're implementing stuff, and you go, you're not even questioning that. It's that's when I get all judgmental and stuff, because I'm just watching people doing, just going, hang on a second, how can you be so aware? And then you are just taking that as read, that's the way that things happen. There is, as you say, a beyond solution, but you've got to tear all of that down. You've got to actually see it for what it is, so that you can say, there is something beyond that. I am not bound. I am a magical being. I can create what I want to create. I am not bound by any rules. I can completely create what I want to do. So what is it? And I think, although we're coming at it from very different places, that's exactly what we're doing, is taking people to that beyond space so that they can actually see their way forward.
Yeah. And when that space is reached, it does feel like pure magic. Like there is just no doubt about it. And you watch, like the environment responds and people respond and everything just shifts immediately. And you can see the magic at play. And you're like, suddenly it's like all those things that describe the magical world, like, oh, this just so happened to happen right now when we needed it to, and all the synchronicities and the beautiful timing and the I want this and it suddenly arrives, and all those sure signs of magic. Just, it's like boom, the energy just shifts, and then everything is just in flow. And it's the flow of nature. It's like that is that space of magic. And okay, so I think something new is coming through. So I don't even know if I believe this, but I'm just going to say it because it's coming through and wants to be shared. So don't hold me that this is my thing, but I feel like there is it's like intentional magic, and there is like this more surrendered experience of magic where you're just like trusting the whole realm of magic to work its magic, and you're included in that realm. But I think what a lot of people think that magic is that intentional magic where there's rituals and intentions, and I am going to create this situation. And actually there's a lot of fucking manipulation in that. And yeah. I'm just realizing this because I remember receiving a voicemail from someone not too long ago saying that they were going to work their magic on someone. And I was listening to it and my body just went, and then they said something like, and I know you know what that means because you're magical. And I was like, oh, do not put me in that world. I am not. Like, I do not work my magic on people or situations or anything like that. That is just pretty manipulation. And it's like an old school ritualistic, we're going to tune in. It's like, it's repeating old rituals that I just don't think need to be repeated anymore. And I feel like a lot of women are remembering a lot of these rituals and they're acting them out without any discernment about what they're playing with. And men as well. I just know that there's a lot of women doing it at the moment. I feel like that is, again, just one polar extreme way of living where you live this real magical, intentional life where you're like driving all of your experiences from the ether. And the other extreme has been like, you're a total logical thinker or victim to your reality and nothing's in your control. But beyond that is actually just totally surrendering, knowing, like, for me, it's like totally surrendering to the magic unfolding. I don't need to change any situation, because if I'm trying to change a situation, I'm in resistance to my life and I'm not trusting the magic.
Absolutely. And it's that, it's, as you say, it's like the controlling thing is one of the biggest bits of programming that we have. It's like I have to, because either if I'm not controlling it, then I am the victim. So it's but it's actually playing into that, because you're trying to control it rather than understand that actually what's happening is is happening on a completely different level.
Yeah, and it's polarities. It's like being the control versus the victim. It's like, well, you're actually controlling yourself and you're being your own victim to you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on. So what's beyond that? And that's always where I want to go. It's like, what's beyond that? Now, the only way that I can get to that awareness is by willing to see myself, to dig that deep and know that I have manipulated people intentionally and unintentionally using magic, and to see the darkness of this magical world and all these rituals, and to see like the darkness of needing to control and manipulate people, and especially, like, I think the business shadow is just wanting to come into this conversation. But this is like then tuned into the whole business world, where people are using rituals and magic to create the situation. They're like, I get it. I totally understand why you're doing it. I'm not judging it. And in some ways it's really awesome, because you need to play in that world sometimes, but to only operate from that world is limiting. And I'm going to happily talk about the shadow side of that experience, even though there's some amazing light sides to that as well. But the real shadow side of that is you're manipulating people and you're making it look like under the guise of magic, and that you're doing something really empowering. And really it's just trying to control the situation and manipulating, like, I'm going to do this, and you know, I'm going to like tune in and get all my clients ready in the ether. And like, it's like, or whatever it is like, I'm sorry, but the shadow is, you're just trying to, you know what I mean? So be willing to look at that, to then allows you to have the awareness, because I don't see that as bad or wrong. I'm just like, that's the fucking truth. Like, just admit it. It's nothing wrong with it. Just admit it. Go that deep. And then you're gifted with the consciousness and the awareness of what is beyond that. And what I feel like I've been gifted is this real magical realm where I'm allowed to, like, I can tune into at any single moment and experience the flow of magic unfold in my life, and nature conspiring with me. But I'm not being a control freak. I'm not saying this is the best thing for my life and using rituals of magic to do it. I'm just allowing myself to be a magical being. And I think that's inherently the gift from being willing to look at the shadow.
Yes. And it's I think one of the things that has come to me a lot recently is that is the extent to which we resist holding space. We go into business and we're going to help people, but we actually resist holding space for those people, because we're resisting holding space for ourselves to do that work. And I think you've touched on this. I've heard you talk about the need to actually lead in that respect, and to hold the space for yourself to do this work, because it is terrifying going into business for yourself. And if you don't go on that journey and hold the space for yourself to go on that journey, how can you hold the space for anybody else to go on that journey, unless you use any form of manipulation to do it?
Yeah. And like, if we really want to just like go into that shadow a little bit more, there are many people who are aware that they're who are aware that they're not ready to hold space for people. And yes, it's how can you, and it's also how dare you. Like, there is a little bit like, just to really go into that of the side of it, it's a little bit like, well, how dare you hold, like, you know that you cannot go as deep as you need to go for that person. And then, like, coming into that other like echelon, which is many people just have no awareness. They don't know that they need to go that deep for that person. And that's when it's like, well, how can you? And you have those sorts of questions. And each question is different for every person where they're at. But for me, that whole experience of working in this world is that every single encounter that you have with a client is going to highlight what you need to do with yourself. And some people are going to ignore that call and just keep rehashing the same information. They're not willing to go there. But if you follow like the realm of magic, there is an equal exchange happening no matter how much time and attention and space you give someone. And you're like, yes, I deserve to be financially rewarded for that. If you're in that realm of magic, they are gifting you so much back about yourself. It's like a mirror. And if they show you that you need to go deeper, that's when you're like, I'm now aware that I need to do more work on myself so I can legitimately hold space for other people. And that's when I think, get a bit dark, change the question. How dare I? Actually sitting that for a moment. How dare I take this next call when I know that I need to do this with myself, and just see what wants to unfold? But people aren't willing to speak to themselves like that or go to that level of that depth. But when you are in that space, what starts to unfold is really, really amazing. And this is something that I've experienced so much in the creation of this whole Grail leadership experience. Is no matter what's going on, I'm able to bring every single side to myself to the situation and have those questions like, well, how dare I do this? And be that person and be totally appreciated and loved and held and supported, because the information that I'm bringing is key. Information and feedback, and the same for everyone else in a situation. So if someone is really upset by something happening, but they're willing to take full responsibility and they're like, I'm upset by this, can we dive in together? And you're like, let's go there. Let's go as deep as you need to go. What generally happens is we realize a key weed that's growing in the whole thing. And we're like, that was like totally closing this whole world in. And we were basically watching ourselves about to repeat what every single other type of, new community is trying to do, where we just go back into the old conditioning and the old programming. But we were, wow, look what was being created from that one little thought. And then this massive, expansive experience opens up, and beyond solutions just come pouring through. And you're like, wow. But it takes us to get that deep to get to that space. It always unravels the next bit. And this is the part where I think people are just not willing or don't know that it's safe to go there, because they've been told over and over again, it's wrong, it's bad. You want to love and like that away. You don't want to go there. You shouldn't think like that. It's negative thinking. It's like, well, it's there for a reason. So do you want to use it and lean in, or do you want to keep pretending it doesn't exist and, pounding positive affirmations at yourself in front of the mirror every day, which is kind of just like bullying the mental body. So
God, don't get me started.
If you're not dealing with the actual issue of where those thoughts are coming from, you're just bullying it. You're saying, shut up. I'm amazing. I'm powerful. I'm this. And what about the part of you that doesn't feel amazing and that doesn't feel powerful? It's not wrong. It's there to warn you and give you it gives you great information, and it super plays out in your body intelligence. And it's important. Those little voices that say, well, I'm not amazing, like when you really lean into that whole experience, can gift you so many insights about yourself and keep you fucking humble as well. So, there's always a gift in.
There is. As you were talking, I was just thinking about imposter syndrome, and that gets, there's, that's it's a negative thing, but it's like, for me, I know that when I have those thoughts about, oh God, am I up to this? Am I capable of doing it? Do I know my stuff? Am I going to let people? All of those things, all of those thoughts, they're like this. It's an opportunity for me, to appreciate the things that I can do and stop beating myself up about those, which would be as far as it would go otherwise, in the general consensus about how to deal with imposter syndrome. But then it's also like, okay, what does that mean? Because I'm always driven to keep on improving things. What does that mean? Where can I rise to meet that? So you're absolutely right. It's like we deal with half the problem, and that's when we end up bringing in the extremes again, and in this extreme polarities. We just never allow ourselves to go there. And then that's, to me, that in the world of business, that's when people really struggle, because they're pushing themselves to do something that is just so not right for them. And, that those beyond solutions that you're talking about are the real solutions for their businesses, the real solutions for their lives.
And it's a really cool little play on word, because yes, there's solutions, but it's also not just beyond solutions. It's beyond solutions, like beyond the need to solve something. It's like there's nothing that needs to be solved. It's just like we can expand further, and it's like getting more richness out of the whole experience. It feels to me like it lifts us out of just that like surface level of what it is to be a human, and lifts us more into a greater experience of like, whoa, when you're really accessing all the potential of a situation, it feels like you're tapping into way more than just your individual experience. It's like a very like collective experience, but also like a greater being, like the experience of what that might be like. Like a lot of the time, if I'm really struggling in life and I connect into like, oh, okay, well, what would my greater being be getting out of this? Like, and I experience, like, sometimes I'll go on journeys where I'll experience the greatness of all of me receiving all this rich experiences in life, and I realize that they're not feeling them as bad or horrible or wrong. It's just really inherently like a rich experience that makes up the whole, and it just like makes me go, oh, I'm the one that keeps labeling it as wrong. Like, it doesn't matter how bad someone's life may look, or especially if it's someone you love. Sometimes it's not about you. It's like, my family member or my daughter or my sister-in-law or whatever it is. You care deeply for someone and you see this horrible thing happening to them in their life, and you're like, why? This is horrible. Like, what is someone you love is just like dating some like person that's just like totally taking them out of who they are as a person and derailing them, and then they're getting addicted to drugs or alcohol, and you're like, what is going on? But it doesn't matter how bad that looks from the outside looking in, because if you cannot put your hand on your heart and say this experience is not meant to happen to them, like when you feel into the greatness of their being and their whole life and what could potentially happen as a result, you can't really say this is the wrong thing for them. Because you don't know that this is the one thing that just leads to the most magic unfolding, so if we apply that always to ourselves, and not resist, there's not a need to control all the time and to be like, okay, yeah. And then when we step away from that controlling and really like surrendering into the realm of magic, there's a different way we show up in relationships, but also in business. And I feel like that fear and that desperation and that I need my next client and I have to turn this situation into that, and I have an agenda that this webinar needs to lead to this many sales, to this, all of that just disintegrates and dissolves. It's like it becomes none of your fucking business. And then there's spaciousness, and people don't feel weird energy from you. And this is so important for people who are in those early stages of business, because it's the signals that you send out do way more than your fucking copy, way more than how you show up. It's people don't know, but they just feel drawn to you. And that's why you'll see so many people selling what I might see as the most fucking useless, ridiculous courses that I think they're just ripping people off, like having no responsibility, like shadow side, no responsibility for, you know, that they are promising stuff that cannot and will not be fulfilled in these programs. Like, because you see and you read and you're like, that's impossible. You can't do that in 5 days. Like, and you just laugh and you're like, oh, these people, but they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people signing up, you know. And you're like, but I offer all of this goodness and I struggle to get a few people to sign up to what I do. It's got nothing to do with who you are. It's like the signals that you're sending out. And if you're sending signals out, and this is like, again, it's not about making the judgment of what's good or bad, regardless of thousands of people signing up for your program, whatever your program is, if the signals that you're sending out is like, totally trust, I don't need you to sign up, I'm like totally good, you know, and I just want to share this, and you just like in surrender to the whole thing. It's a very different experience to, I put my life into this, I'm giving away my life's work and you need to honor it and respect it. And there's 5 like energetic barriers and loopholes to get through before you even sign up. And that person's course could be so much more valuable, but you know.
Oh, yes. Do you remember somebody saying to me once, and I'd gone on a webinar for something that they were doing, and they wanted to speak to me afterwards, and I said, and at the end of the webinar they said, I want you to ask your soul, is it hell yes or a hell no? And mine was, it's a hell no. The energy was so wrong for me, and there was been a couple of things that happened, and got the message on afterwards, and she was like, well, I don't understand. You shouldn't have been able to get through to the webinar unless you were then unless you were going to buy the program. And it was just like, what?
Oh wow.
I was just like, I'm sorry, you lost me completely, because to me it's like, yeah, you're absolutely, it's like I share because that's what I feel called to do, and I don't think, oh yeah, I'm going to share because I want to sign up 50 people, because that's the fastest way to disappoint yourself. Because you're going back into
pretty much.
Yeah, but you're going back into the whole thing of controlling. And that's why I personally, you know, when people say, oh, I'm going to set an intention that I want to sign this number of clients, and you know that it's still in a control space of control. And when, as you said, you know, when people say, oh, well, write down a list of people that you actually want to work with, well, no, because again, that's controlling to me. I can't, I know what you understand exactly what you're saying. I can't go down that route. It's just, it's got to be about the quality of the energy that you want to bring to it, not the agenda.
Yeah, the agenda. Because I used to write down people's names and be like, I really want this person, I really want that person. And it can like really like help you tune in and be like, these are the types of experiences that I want to have. I'd love it if these types of people were involved. But it's like the attachment to it being that person, that's when it becomes like controlling and manipulating, and I need you to do my program. But I think it's more like, for me now, I just rather tune in to the experiences that I want to have and be totally open and unattached to who and how that shows up.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, this is what I desire. I don't need you to fulfill that purpose, but anyone could do that. And if that purpose isn't fulfilled, so what? Wasn't actually what I truly desired, because what I truly desire is what shows up in my life. As horrible and fucking hard as that can be to hear sometimes, I get it. I totally, like, I've had some fucking epic experiences in life where, oh man, like, yeah, I've questioned everything, but I keep going back to the 2 worst experiences of my life, which inherently were probably the best experiences I've ever had. My full mental breakdown, and then when I spent months getting full attacks from demons at night. Those are the 2 most horrible experiences of my life. They also were the best, like without doubt. Like, I have to say they were the best because of what I became from those experiences, and the power and the sovereignty and the discernment and the integrity and the desire to live, you know, a fulfilling life, and to not hide all the parts of me and accept all parts of me, and to love like my mental health wherever it's at, and all these different things were born out of that. And it just woke me up of a world that I was pretending that I was a part of. And it basically forced me out of a whole tribe and a way of living that was not aligned, and it launched me into where I wanted to be. So like, it just takes years sometimes to realize, but if I'm in the moment and I'm like, the only thing that's going to help me is time, I just put my trust in time and healing, and enjoy that terrible experience as much as I can, and derive as much wisdom as I can out of it, and always looking for what is actually happening. And I find that not only the experiences happen less, they tie up quickly. They don't last as long as well, but also I don't have regrets or frustrations or anger or resentment about things that have happened to my past, because I see the absolute magic and beauty in them all.
Oh, Julia, we could talk for hours.
I know.
We really could.
We totally hit our mark, didn't we? Like,
yes, we
went over this.
Yes. So, I mean, we really could just go on and on, because this is not a conversation that will ever stop. You know, this journey into finding your own magic just doesn't stop, because there's always something beyond what we can see now. It's been an absolute pleasure and delight, and so many things I was thinking, I've got to go back through the whole interview and just pick some bits out. Thank you so much. It's been such fun.
Thank you. Is it okay if I share one really quick thing? It just really wants to be said, is that I've used the word magic today, but that's just my operating modus. If you need to replace that word and you're like, oh, she's not talking about magic, she's talking about this, and that's what it is in your world, well, that's what it is in your world, and that's the magic in it. So it doesn't have to be magic. It could be anything that you're thinking of, that you experience the same thing. So I just wanted you to feel into the expansiveness of that and not be tied into it has to be magic.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you, Polly. Thanks for having me on your beautiful Unscripted podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening and following the word trails with us. I hope you have found it inspiring and intriguing. The details for all of my guests are in the show notes beneath to help. Thank you so much for listening and following the word trails with us. I hope you have found it inspiring and intriguing. The details for all of my guests are in the show notes beneath to help you continue to follow the trail.